I remember that day I was out for lunch and just, it was not a care in my world, it felt. And then by the evening, I was having this panic attack and wanted to call an ambulance and swear I was having a heart attack. And it was the moment that was the sort of bit of a light bulb moment that I probably needed to slow down and reset.
Welcome to Your Mind, Your Business, the podcast that dives into the real grit of entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Carina McLeod, CEO and founder of E-Commerce Nurse, an e-commerce growth agency. And today we have a special guest, Garry Staines from GSQ Brickwork, joining us today. Welcome, Garry.
Hi, Carina. Good to be here.
Good. I'm super excited to talk to you today because we've briefly spoken, but I don't know your full story.
No, it's going to be some discovery.
There is going to be some discovery today. So best start off, because the audience are probably thinking, just like me, who is Garry? So I'll let you explain who Garry is today, and then I'm going to hit rewind.
Okay, so I'm the Managing Director of GSQ Brickwork, as you said. I am also, I'm married to my business partner. We have got 3 wonderful boys that all work for the business. And also I've got a Labradoodle who I claim as my 4th son. But I love building houses and I love building businesses, but also I love building people. So passionate about training. And I have a side hustle of a business called Site Ready Solutions. So let's go back to the beginning.
Yeah, it sounds like you're kept busy, especially. And I love the fact that you've got the family all involved there as well. So,
yeah, I'm not sure it's design or accident, but it works really well, to be fair. And, you know, when, say, a little bit of preparation for today, thinking about the past, I've always had side hustles. So having 2 businesses and working alongside the families, that's what I do.
Fantastic. So let's go to the start.
Mm-hmm.
So did you ever believe that you would be where you are today? Was that entrepreneurship ever a thought on your mind at the start?
Yeah, I'm not sure the actual entrepreneurship sits. I probably class myself as a business person that's been pretty successful. And I kind of was driven as a child. My parents did pretty well as they were in construction. They were bricklayers myself. They were in their own companies. So I was brought up around pretty much, people that were doing pretty well for themselves. But I came originally from Basildon, from a council house estate. So there wasn't no real great upbringing. Just you could see there was opportunity by going and working hard. And, my first job, probably like many people, would have been a paper round. And earning a bit of money and getting a taste for that. It was something that kind of worked. And then I got brought up around, so my dad was a bricklayer, so you got brought up around them type of people, and I would call them like real, Essex people, some real characters that I grew up around. But I was massively into music as a child as well, so I think my dream was to be a DJ or get into music, and I kind of did that because I started being a DJ at 14, being a mobile DJ, and my dad was lucky enough to take me around to stuff, and I was doing parties and bits and pieces, but got to 16, and I think that was probably still my pathway I was going to do when I left school. Didn't do that great at school in the end. Really sort of was pretty. I found school pretty easily, but I just failed my exams, so had to become a bricklayer. I guess my dad was a bricklayer. It seemed the easy way at that point. And my dad said, if you learn a trade, you'll have a job for life, which is true because 40 years later I'm still doing it. But I qualified and I was still DJing, and that was really my passion. And from there, being a DJ, I was also started selling records at record fairs, ended up opening a record shop, and then did that for a few years. So it was a record shop, but it wasn't just doing a record shop. I started promoting. I was doing raves and sort of reggae do's in Southend, all this sort of crazy stuff. And really, all that time it was really good to earn, make £2 out of £1. There was no real big plan. You just earn some money, really, and that was my journey for a few years. So
Fascinating. I love that. So DJ almost at the age of 14, sort of. So as you say, you've got side hustles, but you were hustling at a really young age. To make that work.
I kind of I've had lots of great mentors in my life, and my dad being one of them, bringing me up around music, but also my uncle was a DJ in nightclubs and stuff. So I see some of that stuff, and there was a thing about making people happy. I think there's something about the entrepreneurship, about selling stuff. And I had a thing about when I play records, if you make people dance and keep them on the dance floor, you're doing something right. And that's something I've sort of taken on in my business life as I've sort of progressed and got back into construction and stuff, But that was exciting times. It was pretty rock and roll lifestyle for a few years.
Yeah, I can imagine. With I've just had a little bit of nostalgia from the back in the days of raves and everything.
Yeah.
So you've got the music going. You've got your record shop. And you're sort of promoting as well.
Yeah.
How did you then sort of go?
Well, I got married fairly young, and we had a child, and then the second child was coming along. And really, wife, it was just, she had a good job, and, she probably was earning more than me at the time. I was having the rock and roll lifestyle. And it just seemed more sense to actually maybe go back to the old day job of bricklaying. And at the time, the record shop, we were sort of in the early 90s, mid-90s, and the online thing had just started. So I was just starting selling music online, early days of eBay. And I was finding I was selling more records online than I was in the shop. So I thought, well, maybe, just go back and do a few little side jobs, a little bit of private jobs, building, bricklaying, and combining the two. So that was really the journey. So the 7-year lease of the shop ran out, and slowly drifted back into construction, really.
Oh, wow. So then were you still selling on the side?
Oh, yeah. And that was pretty big for a few years. And again, it was something I ran with my wife. She was very much working alongside her doing that. And we was, sort of selling, 100, 200 records a day, always going to the post office, but always going and buying records everywhere. So secondhand records, boot sales was quite a thing at the time. And it was good. But there was a little bit of pressure about combining the two. When I went back to bricklaying, I kind of got lucky in the respect of I soon became a supervisor and soon was looking after my own a gang, as we called them back then, and I was earning good money. And so there was that sort of balance of trying to find it in time. We had our third son, and there was just never enough time really to spend time with family. So one thing had to go really. So slowly the records went. And just concentrated on the brickwork business.
Awesome. Do you ever miss that?
Yeah, sometimes. It was good. So I still got a lot of records. And I'm still massively into music. But I think it's tough game to make money in, really, particularly these days. So it's you could do it as a bit of a lifestyle job, but it's you move on, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. So you sound somebody that will, when you have like a job or something that you're working on, you'll make it happen, as you've said. It sounds like you were very successful quite quickly in your bricklaying career. Yeah. What then sort of moved you to move forward from working for someone, I'm guessing someone else, to yourself?
So that was about a 10-year journey. I was pretty much self-employed for most of it. So I was running a team or running part of the business. And, I've been self-employed pretty much all my career. So that's nice in itself. You never really know what you're going to earn at the end of the week. And, back then the simplicity of working a Saturday and get paid a bit more and stuff, sort of simple stuff as a young person, really. But I think there was what I often said yes to everything. Yeah, I've learned now to say no to a few things. But at the time I was always keen to please, and I think it comes back from that, looking back at that DJ thing about playing that record and seeing people smiles on their face. So the guy I was working with was getting busy. There was work sort of West London and stuff, and I was from Essex, and there was opportunity to earn a bit more money. So I thought I'd go that way, and you're driven really to support my family, have good holidays, buy a nice car and all that sort of stuff that you would typical bloke from Essex stuff, really. That was my drive at the time. But 10 years. And then I'd worked my way up pretty well in the company. He was a successful Essex bricklaying contractor. And it looked like I was going to try to buy it. He was looking to retire or maybe sell the business. And now it's 2008 and I was looking to buy the business. And we had a bit of a recession, which I kind of didn't really see coming. And I was employed at the time and got made redundant. And that was a big, big life-changing moment for me.
Yeah, I can imagine, because it sounds like it was kind of all go for you from the start, and there was never really necessarily a blip until then. How did you manage that?
Yeah, that was definitely the first blip. I was lucky, in respect of I had lots of good contacts at that point. So the position I was with my employer at the time, I was pretty much running his business day to day. So I had a good contact list, but I can't, I was broken at the time. And I remember walking my dog and just me and my dog and talking to him like you do, I suppose, and crying and just being in a park with him, thinking, what can I do? It's just crazy. And I suppose, it's probably my first mental health problem, if you like. But the strength of my wife telling me just to get on with it. She doesn't mess around. She just tells it the way it is. And it was a little kick that I needed. So just got the black book out, picked up, made a few phone calls and quickly got back on it. So if I wallowed too long, it might have gone a different way. But yeah, just picked up the phone.
Yeah. You've got a great bit of self-awareness in the fact that you who noticed that was happening. Was that self-awareness with you at that point in time, or is it more back on looking and reflecting back?
Yeah, I've always pretty good with self-awareness, I think. But you reflect back in different ways. You maybe retell the story. I'm sort of like, I think back now and I can think of the dog looking at me going, oh, poor dad, what's going on? But of course it wasn't like that. But I just, you got to move on quickly. And I got lucky. I always seem to get lucky. So the guy who I then got some work with, I kind of knew via our sons that played football together, which I didn't know when I made the call to him. And, it was a pretty, like in our industry, 2008 in house building was absolutely rock bottom. And, we sort of like first in recession, first outs often. And I went on a site and I literally started with two people. It was me and a former apprentice. And we worked together and just built it up from there. So he picked up some more work, said, can I do it? So became 4, became 6, and I just grew from there. So it was, at the time, it seemed like the worst thing that ever happened. But of course, it was the best thing, really,
Yeah, definitely. Because, as you say, you hit recession. Was everybody losing their jobs there? It wasn't just you. Yeah. So it was building up then something that had completely dropped that whole industry. It
was a good time to start, really, to be fair, because there was other people around there that was probably had historic debt and stuff, and I was just building from zero. So everything was a gain from me. And we built a business. So at the time, I was really subcontracting some work. We had some direct work with a small groundwork company, but we built up pretty quickly. There was some cash flow problems. When you're growing in the industry you pay weekly and you get paid one day. So there was always, that was the biggest thing that held me back in growth. But over a couple of years we'd grown and we was all of a sudden, pretty quickly got to 1 million, I guess. And I was good at what we was doing, delivering well for our client. Again, always putting the client first, understand what they wanted. A bit like the records, see what music they wanted to hear and delivered it for them. So built a business. And
was that your company now, or was that when you were contracting?
Yeah, so that 2008 we started GSQ, and again there was no great plan. It was just keeping food on the table. I think the couple of years of employment I had got me in a good position because I managed to get a good mortgage. Being self-employed at the time, to have a couple of years employment helped getting a nicer mortgage and a company car and all that stuff. So I had all them things that I wanted to keep. So I had to earn some money quickly, just build it from there. But I was ambitious. I was around. I had lots of friends that had been quite successful, that had nice cars and nice houses, and I wanted a bit of that really. So just driven really.
Driven, yeah, definitely. And so before that happened and before you set up your business, you were more contracting. So what were those big things, the scariest thing for you, I guess, when you started up your own business?
Yeah, it would have been cash. Cash and the tax man and stuff like that. There was some strange nuances that you had to get gross status in tax wise, so it helped cash flow. And I remember when I applied for it, you had to have a certain amount of turnover. I got turned down, so I went and appealed. I thought, no, I'm not having that. I'm going to go and stand in front of the tax man and fight him, and I won. So that helped. But you kind of got away with it. And I think at the time because I was doing some subcontracting for another contractor and I had my own work, I balanced the two. And my wife was very good at numbers, and together we was always a team, So, we've grown. I've always grown everything as a team. I've had a lot of people around me that are good at what they do, and I just stick to doing what I'm good at. I wasn't a bad bricklayer. It wasn't brilliant. So, but I'm a pretty good people person and a good manager, I think,
Yeah, because how many people do you have working for you now?
Oh, it's scary. So around about 250 at any one time.
Wow.
And so many of them are self-employed. But direct employees with the apprentices and stuff, we're close to 100. So it's a big team, and it's grown to being quite a big business, to be fair. And it's still, a cash-hungry business because we pay every week.
Yep.
And of course, we're in really possibly another recession in my industry. There's a lot of talk about house building and the amount of houses we all need to build, but it's very market-led, and the market's not great at the moment.
Yeah. Does that, I'm keen to come on to that, but I'm also keen to go to that start of when you grow in your team, because I'm guessing that wasn't overnight that you grew over to like 100 employees. What was it like when you had to start making your first few hires, and that, I guess, that responsibility that it's not just on your weight, you're responsible for others?
Yeah. There's a risk taken in that, I guess, but hiring people that are good at doing stuff that you don't do. So, laying bricks and building houses is pretty simple. You have traditionally two people and a labourer. That's your team. And, you put together another one of those that could go and build another house for you. And then maybe when there's another site, they can go and do it. And that element of trust, again, back in the day, it's quite simple. It was just a business run on a telephone. There's no internet or anything. And you go and have a look, see what's happening. So you build that trust, but always having a backup plan as well. So, if you put someone there, you think, right, if it doesn't work out, maybe if it, fail fast, get rid of them quickly. And you could back, what we was doing, if he wasn't good by 9 o'clock in the morning, you could kind of get rid of people, it kind of works. There's politically some pressure about self-employment and stuff, but it does work, really.
Yeah. And are you somebody that is quite comfortable with delegating? Because when you are doing something yourself, like let's say you're a good bricklayer, and then all of a sudden you're like, no, actually I'm passing the work on to someone else. How does that, because you effectively, it's all about the client then?
It is, yeah. So like I said, find some good number twos that buy into what you're trying to deliver. And I have got lucky. I've got some really good people around me, but I think I'm good at that. So it's about you tend to somehow rate, you sort of connect with good people. Something, I don't know, it's a bit of a magic trick, I don't know. And yeah, just you've got to take the ego out of that delegation. And I think there can be a lot of ego in men working with each other, but getting other people to do that job. And yeah, you're going to fail a few times, and I've failed a few times. But yeah, if you're not going to build it on your own, doing what I do, you can't do that. And I guess really in any business, any entrepreneurial business, now I've got to meet plenty of entrepreneurs now, and you see that everyone, even though it's a lonely thing, you need a team.
Yeah, definitely. And you spoke a bit earlier about people pleasing and saying yes to everything.
Yeah.
Has that changed? And what was that moment where you did make that change to start saying no?
Yeah, I grew up, and I grew up. Yeah, I don't think I've ever grown up. Yeah, sod that, But I had so the building of the business from 2008, and probably for 7 or 8 years, I was driven by money more than anything, and there was quite pressure building. I was drinking far too much. Some history of being out a lot, back in the promoting and raving days. So yeah, I was self-medicating a lot, really, and success was becoming a thing. So bigger houses, a house in Spain, more cars, and just stuff. And yeah, maybe I got a little bit misdirected a bit. So I had to find myself a little bit, and try to find the real me. And that's not always easy when you're still trying to grow this business a little bit. So becoming authentic and vulnerable doesn't really fit when you're trying to build something in a male-dominated industry, So yeah, there was a bit of a thing, and it sort of coincided with becoming 50 and COVID. At the time, I didn't really think that those two things were that important, but when I look back again now, it's probably all had to happen, really. It was a bit of a reset for us all.
Fascinating, because it sounds like you've had a couple of resets, right? If we look back, you had the 2008, and then the business, of course, we had COVID and that. So I guess it's a part where, as you said, it's all about the money. You've got the cars, house, and you're very successful.
Yeah. I mean, the success was, I mean, the problem I had at that time, we were spending a lot of time in Spain. I was loving it. I was loving this sort of second life, as it were. But then people at home were probably thinking, we're taking their eye off the ball with the business. So, the bottom line wasn't quite as good as it was. The top line was great, but the bottom line wasn't so good. And I think that's just natural, isn't it? While the boss is away, as it were. But it was just that trying to work out what I really wanted, and the drinking. So it's back in 2016. I had a panic attack, and it just came from absolutely nowhere. And it came from, really, at the time, I was, I think I was $1 million. Everything was great. I remember that day I was out for lunch, and just there was not a care in my world, it felt. And then by the evening, I was having this panic attack and wanted to call an ambulance and swear I was having a heart attack. And it was the moment that was the sort of bit of a light bulb moment that I probably needed to slow down and reset. So it took me a few years from then, actually, sort of suffering from anxiety, hiding it well, but again, still growing a business,
Yeah, interesting. So I guess that's where you've got that hunger, right? And you're growing, and you're like, well, I can grow more. Because I had a guest the other day that was like, well, we get to 1 million, then you're like, well, let's do 2 million.
Yeah.
Well, let's do 5 million. And there's kind of like, it's that constant growth.
Yeah. There was a number. I mean, every time the accountant sat down with us and said where it was going, and it all felt good, and, the ego. And I think we're going to talk about social media. Social media becomes a bit of a thing. You can sort of like, you look at, maybe compare with others at the time. So I was definitely driven to earn more. And some of the stuff I had was I suppose could be seen as status symbol stuff, but it was also it came because the rewards became as part of what you did, I suppose. So it wasn't always I need to go and buy that, because I've got some spare money. You just kind of did it,
Yeah.
So, yeah. But it was 2020 was a big reset because we had grown the business a lot at the time as well. So we was probably at that point we was just turning into about a £10 million business.
Wow.
And we had just taken a lease for our first office. We'd previously run everything from home. We had an office at home, which was good, but we was growing. We'd taken on a couple of more managers, and so home just wasn't working. And again, 2020, when that kicked in, the COVID, I remember that people saying, are you sure about this lease? Are you sure about this money you're spending? I'm like, no, it's absolutely fine, don't worry. And I wasn't worried, and I don't really worry now about money at all, actually. But yeah, it kind of worked out well, so yeah.
So you're in, you have this panic attack.
Yeah.
What then do you start changing?
Yeah, so 2016, I took some advice to start switching off a little bit, finding, and I, sort of, my parents lived in France, and I just took myself away there for a bit and took a break and tried to start reflecting, and changed my whole relationship with alcohol. Tried to moderate, which was not easy. In respect of it, probably the hangovers were getting worse and the anxiety was getting worse because I was probably hitting it harder at weekends and stuff. And I just cobbled along for about 3 or 4 years trying to find this magic cure for hangovers. And then in 2020 found one by giving up completely. But it was, again, time of reflection in Spain. We had spent the previous summers in Spain with lots of friends and guests coming over. Of course, we couldn't this year because it was COVID. We managed to get there. But it was time on my own. And I was reading a book at the time, Ollie Ollerton, which was reading it really just because the whole SAS thing. And there was a thing in there about him becoming alcohol free and finding his sort of purpose, and it made me reflect a bit. And I decided to give up alcohol. Spent the summer drinking whilst doing it, but dug into listening to podcasts, trying to find out at the time. 2020, there was people to giving up, but it wasn't necessarily, I didn't know anyone, but finding podcasts helped me find other people. Found Andy Ramage, the 1 Year No Beer, and a few other guys. Adrian Charles had sort of done a thing on BBC, so it wasn't unheard of, but I got into that really, and that really helped me reset and kind of find my purpose, that it wasn't necessarily about money anymore.
That's fascinating. Was the anxiety, do you think, as a result of the work and stress, or the drinking to combat the anxiety?
Yeah, I think it was the drink. I think it was just the drinking, because it was very health anxiety. So I was having like a lot of chest pains and stuff that I was a little bit overweight at the time, as I just worked my way up to being 18 stone or something stupid, crazy, you just creeps
Yeah.
on. And I also thought I was really fit. It's strange, when you look back, but it was the drink. So the anxiety of having hangovers every day, and I wasn't necessarily drinking every day, but I was just still groggy 2 or 3 days later. So it was as a thing for about performance, it was terrible. And I was seeking this cure, and I was trying everything, so white wine instead of red, gin instead of beer, and all these things. And the only cure really is to give up.
Yeah.
And it's worked out really well for me, to be fair.
It's really interesting that you mentioned purpose, because I've had another guest on that thought that sort of they were driven by money, and for decades they were driven by money, and then something just changed. So
I think there's something about possibly hitting 50 and the whole thing about wanting to maybe live forever or not. Midlife crisis or some sort of crisis. But I'd had a few people struggling, or sort of a couple of people end of life stuff as well going on with some family and friends, and it made you reflect a lot about why we're here. And I got introduced to a book, The 5 Regrets of the Dying, Bronnie Ware, and it was so powerful about people that, and she was a end of life nurse helping people really, and she had sat down with so many successful people and got into what was their drive, and of course none of them was money. They all had their regrets, and there was 2 things with that. It was one is how could she do that job? A nurse that wasn't necessarily paid that well.
Yeah.
Everything I was wanting to do was all about being paid well, But she seemed to have a great sense of purpose. You could see how much she was being rewarded by helping others, and just the insights of the people that she was talking to. So that book really resonated with me. And again, if I hadn't changed my stuff, my thing with alcohol, which got me into stoicism and trying to, a real seeking this sort of bit more about myself, the true authentic me, I just would have never got that book. So it was a real life-changing year, really.
Yeah, it sounds like it, and I'm guessing that's what got you into your other business as well.
Definitely, yeah. So it was. There was a thing, and at the time I got involved in a mastermind and some coaching, and a lot of people there was talking about goals, and I'm like, no, I haven't got any. Everything. A lot of people's goals I had already achieved, if you like. So I'm thinking, I don't need that. And a lot of it was money stuff. So I worked out this thing about helping others. I thought I'd like to give that more of a go, and I'd also reflected on our business that we had grown it with a lot of apprentices. Back in 2011, I'd come up with this concept of someone being site ready. I was working with people that were coming from college that just weren't site ready. So we looked at starting a business back then as site ready, and we got that going a little bit, but it was really just sat within the business. So we doubled down on when people started with us to really get into them on day one, to get them almost chuck away everything they learned in college or didn't learn in college and get them ready for site. So we started developing our own apprenticeship program, started taking more and more of those on. And that became a thing. It was a real intention. I wanted to give back, and I could give back by also helping my own business, building some real, something to hand over to my children, some succession. My 3 sons work for the business. So, trying to build a really good workforce and building it from within,
That's amazing. And I love the fact that you kind of found that purpose of giving back. You mentioned about sort of making people happy. When you were growing your business, because, to get to where you got to, and you mentioned 10 million, that's incredible. So congratulations in terms of being able to grow a business to that level.
Yeah.
Were you always sort of able to kind of see that potential in people, or were you a lot more cutthroat then?
You have to make cutthroat decisions. And like I said, what we do as the day job is fairly simple. You start off with 0 every Monday, and you got to earn some money by the end of the week. But it still comes back to that, finding people that can work together as a team. And we've built it now that we've got some really good management. And I had also a thing about of hopefully, I had this thing about stoicism, memento mori, and getting comfortable with death a little bit, but also weirdly still wanting to live forever. So creating that legacy of building people in and around you that can sort of buy into what you do. And it's challenging, but it's great. Like I say, it's really rewarding. So that's what drives me every day. So we've now set up a new business, Site Ready Solutions, which is set separate than GSQ, but it sort of like works pretty much alongside at the moment. And we've got some funding via House Building Federation and CITB, and it's really exciting. So I'm kind of got a new chapter really, which is I'm loving it.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and especially sort of, as you say, through that reflective moment of being able to create something that, going into, as you say, a mastermind and everybody's clear on their goals, and you're like, hang on, what's mine? So you went from bricklaying and you're creating this business to the size that it is today. No one hands you, I always say this, no one hands you a guidebook to say this is how you run your business. Were there any times where you just thought, what the hell is going on? Like, I just don't think I can take the business to the next level.
Yeah, maybe yesterday, I don't know. I mean, sometimes you can look at that, and we are still growing now. We've grown quite a lot, and we still plan to grow. You just got to realise that it's almost like it doesn't really matter. I know it's obviously if it all went wrong, it would matter to a lot of other people, but I think that resilience is you just go and do it again. It can be lonely, and I've been finding recently working alongside other business owners has really helped me, because you just don't, if you're the business owner, and I've got my partner and my wife who's is slightly different, so having other people gives you a bit of strength. So I don't fear anything. I look forward to every day. I love it. So it's exciting, and what can go wrong? I think there's this. I think sometimes I keep talking about death. It seems quite morbid, but when you understand that that's really the only real thing that you need maybe to fear, and if you don't fear that, then there's nothing to fear, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess you mentioned earlier about potential recession, and of course you experienced something back then. Does that ever play on your mind?
Yeah, I think you've got to look for the signs of where we are now, and we are in pretty tough times. The Liz Truss thing happened, had a big change for us in our industry, and Help to Buy has gone, so it's slowed massively at the moment. So you've got to look at trying to see where. Look at where you can save, make some savings, and do things slightly different. I think the way the world's moving on with the challenges of AI or the opportunities. Obviously, what I do is hands-on still. It's people to people, but so there's a different way going forward. And I think when we're training people now, we're looking at. I think a lot of young people that they look at life a lot differently. They want to get there quicker. So you've got to try to fulfil that a little bit for them. So we talk about history of training and what was done back in the day, but we look at it with a more of a modern approach. And to me, I guess also what I've always done around everyone I've worked is try to empower them the best as I can. So we do that with the people we train, but the people around me, the managers, they pretty much, I can exist. The business exists without me as much as I can, really,
Yeah. Sounds like you're innovating in your industry.
Yeah, definitely with the Site Ready Solutions. I'm really trying to, because the whole skills gap problem is it's been there for a very long time. If you look back at the history of house building and apprenticeships and training, it's never been that great. Going back to slum clearances post World War One. We've pivoted a lot to further education, taking on the training rather than employers doing it, and it's all very messy. But there's a great opportunity in a mess. So I haven't really worked out how we're going to make money by helping people, and lots of me doesn't really care about that. That is a byproduct maybe, but I want to drive it to be a big business. So I've committed to doing some social media stuff. I'm following it as a vlog for the next 3 years. Putting myself accountable out there. So yeah, give it a good go.
Yeah, and the social media part's an interesting one, because you're in a different type of industry, but as you say, you're innovating in the industry, and then you're getting a lot of young people joining who are going to be more around on social media. So is that sort of the part that you're pushing yourself more into? Yeah,
you have to. I mean, I've got a real love-hate relationship with social media. I think, like I guess a lot of us do. So I use LinkedIn a lot for my business stuff and really sort of showcasing what we do. But in brickwork terms, it's become quite glamorous to be a bricklayer these days. There's a bit of a social media following. There's a big event called Super Trail, and it's highlighting how bricklayers can be successful. And we have a thing that we talk about, zero to hero, that you can come in with zero, and after 3 years with zero debt, you could be earning 50k a year, which is not bad opportunity for people. So we highlight that, on the Instagram and TikTok and stuff, and get people that's trying to become a little bit more aspirational rather than maybe falling into construction, which I think is historically done. And I think, with the whole AI and the way the world's going to change in the way people work, there's a great opportunity if we can grasp it. And, I've met so many wonderful people in the last few years. And it's not just young people. We're working with people that are ex-military or people that are in prisons, the whole sort of NEETs thing. It's, there's loads of people there that really are looking for an opportunity.
Yeah, and some kind of, I guess, career as well.
Yeah, and I think, bricklaying is entrepreneurial in itself. It's one brick on top of two. And we focus our training on the numbers and seeing how quickly we can get someone to that, but also by making sure that the skills are delivered. There's a bit of a time surfing with skills. You can't dodge the 10,000 hours stuff, if you like, but you need to reward people and reward them quickly. I think that's really important.
Yeah, definitely. And, in your industry, I'm guessing you're always going to have competition.
Yeah.
Do you stay in your lane, or can you get distracted by others?
So you never compare, they say, isn't it? Competition. Actually, the secret of this skills gap is collaboration rather than competition, which is a tricky one, because obviously all businesses really, by definition, is competition. But yeah, I think some of it drives you. There was I think you look at the success of Microsoft and Apple, they were driven to beat each other. So I think there's some good in that, really, some entrepreneurship and business competition's kind of healthy. But the whole social media noise, you've got to learn how to switch off. You've got to, and I think, doing what we're doing with this podcast stuff is the best type of social media, because it's trying to get back to the connection, which is what human beings do really well. And I think, we can all get pulled into scrolling too much and going, oh yeah, maybe I should be doing that rather than the lane we're in. But, as that maturity, you just got to know that you're, I sometimes say I'm just a bricklayer, and we're all just someone, but we're all broken, but we can all succeed, like that whole thing, it's all cliche stuff, but it works, life's not linear and stuff, but you get to know that as you get older and get a few bruises along the way, so.
Yeah, and proud of your battle scars.
Yeah, I am really, and that's why I like to put this out there. Talking about the whole thing with alcohol. Hopefully you'll get other people that maybe go, yeah, I get it. It's okay to talk about that stuff. It's not I wouldn't ever class myself as an alcoholic or anything. We can all. You don't put labels. Life's far too complicated than labels. But just be yourself. I think and say try to remove the ego as much as possible. Connect with people, and the collaboration. I think this is really key to be going forward in this sort of sometimes a little bit scary world. We need to collaborate.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. And you mentioned about noise. Are you somebody that where your mind's kind of constantly turning, and how do you kind of keep it balanced?
It's tough, So. Stoicism teaches me to be calm and be still, but I'm busy. The mind is crazy busy, and you think of this whole thing about of seeking a label. And I read that book Rocket Fuel, and concept of being a visionary and also working on people that can help you become get some stuff out of that vision. So. I know that your head's busy, and you've got to work a way of sort of like not getting into the void and overthinking and stuff. So, it's getting that balance right. So staying busy is good for me. I like we touched upon it. I like running and stuff where you can get your own time, but switching off from phones is really good. I like to travel a lot. My wife and myself travel. We take ourselves off and switch off. And again, the team does our work when we're away. So, yeah, you've got to find downtime.
Yeah, definitely. And was there a time where that was more challenging? Like, because for example, travel, you're building a business. Do you remember that first time where you went away and you basically left the business in someone else's hands?
There's still sometimes real, the full trust. There you go, over to you. And I think there's, this like next era. So do I remember it? Yeah, and it's tough. But again, having the three sons work for the business, and they've earned their right within the business really well. I'm proud to say that they would go and get that job working for anyone and do it really well. So there's a bit of a sort of succession planning coming along. I don't really ever want to give up work if there is such a thing as work, because like I said, I'm not. It's been a long time since I've worried about going to doing something on a Monday, if you like, So it's exciting times, but there would always be. There's that thing about it being your baby and it being a little bit of control, and so again, it's always a bit of a battle of loving the stoic stuff that should be able to say just relax and everyone's got your back, but it's not as simple as that.
Yeah, definitely. And you, as you said, you don't seem to be fazed by things in the sense of not necessarily scared or have that fear. Is there anything though that would keep you awake at night?
I think there was, when we look at numbers in the business, and when it got to of a turnover of 12 million a year, and thinking about 12 months, and thinking, well, I've got to go and win £1 million worth of work a month, almost,
Yeah.
And that was a bit of a, what do I do? But don't overthink it and just push on, I suppose, build people around it. So, yeah, I guess health would be the one that is the constant battle as you get older. You're in and around people that are not necessarily the best of health as we get older. So just trying to stay fit as much as possible, physically fit, mentally fit. So the whole concept of mentally fit is, I'm always trying to learn more about myself and working alongside other people. And I think recently working with people that are like, similar position to myself that want to give back has really helped me. I said, getting into other people's vulnerabilities, help you grow stronger. But yeah, the health thing would be the worry, because certain things you just can't control there. But keep yourself, it's that concept of, it's like a glider, isn't it? The higher you are, as sort of when you start slowing down, if you're up high in the first place, the landing's a bit softer, I think, So that's the way I look at it.
Definitely. And just something interesting you said there was when you get to a certain size, it's very different, isn't it, from when you first start out to being right, we need to get 1 million of business. Do you ever sort of think, what if we can't get that? Or do you ever question or doubt yourself?
The thing that gives me confidence there is that I'm still a bricklayer. Mm-hmm. So if I had to go and start all over again and get my trowel out and get my tools out and go and build a wall and make some money out of it, or go and be a DJ again, or start selling my records and stuff, I've got that, I know I can do it. And I think there's that because the reliance of being self-employed for most of my life and being brought up around that sort of culture of my family gives you the belief that you can do that. So it's kind of, just try to not fear anything at all. And, I know a lot of people that's not as fortunate as me, clearly as many. You try to help them really with that, to just to sort of put your arm around them and say, look, it's all right, And I think that's why I'm loving doing what I'm doing about mentoring and stuff, and I'm working with people that are doing it really well, just being nice to people, and just becoming maybe a parent to many more. I don't know, it's just sounds a bit woo-woo sometimes, but, helping others is just really good.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's interesting that you say, at the end of the day, I'm a bricklayer, because I think that's a really interesting way of looking at it, because that's your fallback, right? If you hit, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but from to manage it in your mind, if a recession or if anything happened, there's always a fallback.
Yeah, I pretty most weeks I would say we'd have a teammate. I say, that's right, I'll go run that job myself if we can't find someone. But crazy to think that could ever happen, really. But it's a really nice fallback. And I think, we all need that. And I like it's all, if I had times, I'm sure there's going to be many more challenges ahead in business. And there's a different challenge when you get to a size now. Funny enough, on the train up, I got a phone call and just won another job, which is great. Win a job on a train, do a little bit of a deal, wheeling deal. Yeah. And it's a fairly sized big job, but, you've had to take a little bit of a tighter hit on your margin. You've got to make them decisions. But again, you know what you're doing, and I think growth is far easier to handle than the other way round, and I think there's obviously it's scary. There's a lot of businesses going out of business at the moment, and the lack of cash in the industry and cash overall, I think it's a bit of a worry, I think, so and there's a little thing about we all kind of wait for the government to sort things out, and I had this line before about the government never invented rock and roll. It wasn't a government-led initiative. The people, we are the revolution and stuff. And I think I've got a bit of a thing that the people will sort this out. Stop blaming. It's not meant to be a political comment, but we've got to stop relying on the government to do bail us out, let them do the admin and let the business people go and really run the world,
Yeah, 100%. And something interesting there about, you mentioned about growth is easier.
Yeah.
Have you ever had that part where you've had to pull back and you've had to almost downsize or drop at some point throughout the years?
Yeah, I guess the last couple of years we have done that. We built up a cost base of your central costs that are running at a number where you probably got to hit that to really start getting the margins out of it. So we've had to take a step backwards the last couple of years, but we're in a really good position now to move it forward. And I think adding the training stuff to what we've done and adding that we've constantly delivered to our clients of the standards of quality they require, building up a really good network of good client base, repeat business, gives you a good opportunity to go it forward. So it's like it's almost you reinvent the business each year, almost each week really. I'm always trying to bring new innovation to it, maybe sometimes too much, to be fair. But then that's when you need a really good operations person around you to sort of, calm you down and get some focus,
Yeah, I was about to say, there's that visionary I can see sort of in front of me of, and how you manage that in your industry as well, and like not get distracted by shiny objects in new shiny object syndrome.
Yeah, no, definitely, you're right. There's always, I think sometimes you can do that because if you set something up and it doesn't work, you think, oh, I can have another idea, that one will work, So there's possibly an element of that. And if you look at all of the tabs I've got open, all the opportunities I've got, and all of the inbound opportunities I've got at the moment, I've got to find a little bit of focus, I guess, because other things can suffer. I think the one thing about helping others and giving back is a lot of people want a piece of that, and it doesn't necessarily come with an income stream. So, if you're in a really good position just to give back, it's great. But we're trying to also keep a bit of a commercial reality to that. There's enough money out there actually for it just to be redistributed a little bit and to get some real impact by giving people some real meaningful jobs and purpose in their life. So there's a lot of challenges there. But so yes, knowing the next route, and that's kind of when that whole, of me filming the stuff we're doing for 3 years, I'm excited about that because when it goes wrong, I'll say it, So just be true.
Yeah, definitely. And be completely authentic, as you say. Yeah. And before we wrap up, I always have one last question I ask my guests, which is, if you were to go back to that start of your journey, would you do anything differently?
Probably not, because the failures, the saying, the obstacles, the ways helped me massively. I'm so lucky, my wife is my absolute bedrock, and my family, I just love it, and that having that around me. There will be times when sometimes you don't necessarily want to take the business chat around the dinner table.
I can imagine.
And put in my place that I'm not the boss in that space, but yeah, I wouldn't change a thing really. I'm really living it. Try to live as much as no regrets. And when you work out that you are good enough, you're all right. You're not just that person that you sometimes perceive you was. Everything else falls in place really nicely. So yeah, bring it on.
That's amazing. I've absolutely loved your story, because there's the growth of your business, but there's also this personal growth journey that you've gone through, and to come out sort of where you're at now in terms of finding a new purpose or finding that real purpose, and you're helping others, is amazing. So congratulations, first off, on the success of your business.
Thank you.
And then, of course, on what you're now doing in the sense of being able to give back and help others grow.
Yeah, hopefully it's all going to work out really well. But like I say, if it doesn't, back on the trail.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm sure it will. Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing your story today.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you for having me.
And thank you everyone for listening today. Love this episode? Don't miss out. Hit subscribe on our YouTube channel and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Instagram as we continue to keep it real.